Uh, Christopher Dukes, welcome back.
First time in person. Very much. I'm going to sit this right here so it's not like it. Hard, but I don't have time. If they have questions, I'll show.
All right, you may testify.
Thank you. Good afternoon. My name is Christopher. Good afternoon, esteemed, I want to say colleagues as well, work for representatives. Thank you for all the work that you do. My name is Christopher Dukes. I've been before this committee before, and I was hoping other folks will be here, but I did provide quite a lengthy written testimony, and I'm glad to be here. I am actually living proof of what Ms. Barbara Fair testified to, but actually a living rebuttal to what Attorney Doyle represented to you or misrepresented to you earlier. I represent a group that's called American Justice Project. It was founded while I myself was sustaining what we called a chokehold, a 15-point chokehold. The chokehold is listed here. These are 16 tactics that are used by prosecutors and police to coerce plea bargains. Sadly, I didn't sign up for this job like some other folks did, but I sustained 15 of those 16 elements. The only one that I was successful of not suffering was wrongful conviction, because I was fortunate enough to be a civil rights investigator who investigated his own case and got the case dismissed during pretrial after 566 days of malicious prosecution. So while awaiting justice, it can take 7 years to get justice in this state. That's a living reality, and that's wrong when there's so many people who know about what's going on. I can tell you right now that we have clients that we are representing in Manchester, Bridgeport, Vernon, and there's one more. There's one more. They're in 4 different GA systems where these individuals are facing wrongful conviction right now. They're being maliciously prosecuted in no crime cases. There's smoke, but no fire. Representative Howard, good to see you here as well also. So Senator Fluxer, as I wanted to get back to a statement that you had made earlier, a question you made. When it was said to you that this stuff happened decades ago, I am living proof it's happening right now, and it's still happening right now. Those of you who I've gotten to know over the years know that your dads as well too. My children are still suffering from the chokehold, 7 years removed from the situation that took place. I know I'm going to run out of time, but I just wanted to tell you that I came to the table with a solution. It does not cost the state to commit to ending the chokehold. I don't have 3 minutes. Well, I can't explain the entire thing to you, but we have made ourselves available to work with you, to be at the table when you're trying to write laws, to find out how can we avoid these tactics being used. The state Supreme Court ruled in my favor in June. This is a case that should have never gone to the state Supreme Court. Currently, right now, I'm on sabbatical since June because the president of the university, Zuma Toro, who wrongfully terminated me, chose to protect a rapist instead. So after I blew the whistle on April 20th of 2018, I was wrongfully terminated while the rapist was protected. I was put on unemployment while the rapist received tenure approval from Zuma Toro afterwards. I'll stop there for now. Thank you. I'll be respectful.
Thank you, Mr. Dukes. And I just will say to you that your signs are not on camera because we don't allow for that.
I know.
Okay. So
It was for
so
you.
when you point to the signs, I just want to let you know that folks are not seeing them. And I'm happy to see you here, and I followed your case, as I think you know.
Yes, sir.
I'm glad that you have gotten towards the end of that. You made contact with me for several years about that. Glad that you've made progress. Representative Fishbone.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Chris, you and I met, what was it, about a year ago?
Yes, sir. Excuse me.
And I too followed your case, and I'm very happy to see the outcome. I also want to mention that somebody had shared with me a video that you had participated in an exchange with people about justice issues. And somebody during that video had made some accusations against me, and you stood up for me. And
Absolutely.
I very much appreciate you bringing that group and telling them the truth. I do share a lot of the issues that you bring to this committee and that you fight for. And certainly, any information, I'm always interested. I've learned a lot sitting in this chair since I've been here about the system and the process. And I very much appreciate what you've done in this space. So I have no questions with regard to the legislation. I just wanted to note those things for the record. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Representative. Representative Howard.
Hi, Chris. I just want to recognize you as well. I appreciate talking to you and following your case and you sharing that information with me. And I had to step out just the very beginning of yours. You're testifying in favor of 1327. Is that my understanding?
I am in favor of 1327. I am vehemently opposed to 1504 for the reason that I did not get a chance to explain.
Well, can you explain it to me? Why are you against 1504?
I'm against 1504 solely for the reason that it does not provide protection for all victims of domestic violence. And what I mean by that is our state has a practice that if you are a person of perhaps my gender, perhaps my race.
Is that 1502 you mean? 1502 is the sentence reduction for survivors of domestic violence. Is that?
No, 1504.
Okay,
It talks
all right, I'm
about the protection of victims, correct, and prosecutions.
Yep, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Well, I'm sorry. So yeah, it was
Okay.
1504.
Yep.
And it's because, again, there is no provision that I'm aware of that protects individuals who come forward and say, know what? I didn't do it. I'm actually the victim. So when you look like me, I mean, I'm a big guy, right? So people look at me, there's no way that guy's a victim of domestic violence. They don't take into account emotional abuse, but they also do not take into account when false accusations are made, what happens after that. And I'm living proof that it can take 7 years. So immediately I was falsely accused, wrongfully arrested, overcharged, excessive bail, fixed to a GPS monitor. I don't wish that upon anybody. Fed bologna sandwiches for days. I haven't had bologna in 7 years. All right. So, and I can smile by that just based on the Holy Spirit in itself. I've never come here to be an adversary. I've come here to tell people this is what's wrong. Let me be a part of fixing the solution, not just for me, as Terry has said also, but for others. Because what happened to me can happen to any of you. It's less likely because of your position. But here I am, a person with no criminal background, no nothing. I was on a $750,000 bond, and the state of Connecticut tried to get it raised to $1 million in a no crime case. My colleague here is holding up 2 separate DNA results
I've seen them.
that have, right, you've seen me in front of the Capitol
Yeah.
years ago, putting that up,
Right.
telling folks, this is what our state is doing. It's what the state did. They refused to acknowledge me as a victim of domestic violence. They refused to acknowledge my children as victims of domestic violence. They solely sided with the mother. And it wasn't until the DNA results confirmed that she is the one who planted duct tape. And she was never kidnapped. She was never hurt in any way. And the law protected her instead of us. CCSU leveraged the big black boogeyman theory, even though I was their #1 guy. I was their #1 investigator. They leveraged that as a reason to get rid of me because I had already blown the whistle on these sexual misconduct cases. And as I said, right now, while I was out the entire time, I don't want to stick out somebody here, but they know that I've been in communications with Terrence Chang, and Terrence Chang has been co-signing this cover-up of this rapist who is still working at CCSU right now, because what they did was they covered up his case. Instead of it being HR and being public to everybody, a public employee raping a student, they put it as a student case, which circumvents the FOIA process. It circumvents the public retaliation or coming back out, the outcry or outrage that a person can get away with this. And they've been protecting this man for over a decade, but the current president folks are doing it, which is why I'm not back at work right now. So for all the Connecticut taxpayers listening, I'm a senior level director who's sitting at home on sabbatical because the hostile environment, after being reinstated by the Supreme Court, still exists. The people are in power, are doing it. The prosecutors, the police who have covered up this crime that happened against me and my children are still, some of them retire now, but there's been no accountability. So I still like to come forward for the sake of transparency, but we need accountability. And we need to make sure this doesn't happen to anyone else.
I appreciate that. And I understand your story. And I think, I would imagine everybody in this committee is in agreement. We don't want to see innocent people be accused of crimes, arrested for crimes, certainly not convicted or incarcerated, right? But I guess my question to you is there's two questions based on that. One is, as much as you were wrongfully accused, right?
Yes.
People do commit crimes in this state that need to be held accountable. We're in agreement about that.
Yes, we are.
And so is your frustration then that when somebody is wrongfully accused in domestic violence situation, for example, that, and it's proven that it was a lie, that they are not prosecuted? Is that your frustration?
Oh, well, that's just part of it. That's a small part of it. Just being falsely accused is not the only element that happens. It's the financial abuse that comes with that.
Right.
I've been separated from my children, my daughter now for over 2,500 days. Okay, so there's all this that happens. My children have been emotionally abused under the nose of DCF for the last 7 years, and they refuse to intervene. And that's why I provided you all my written testimony to show you the thread of communications that I have had. Because this woman was not prosecuted, it gave her a way just last year to wage a new round of false accusations that I had to hire an attorney for and address. And when DCF found out a second time that false accusations were made, all they did was reverse the charges, reverse the findings, and drop it, and they cover it. They protect it. They won't make a public record of it because they know the implications it has on everybody involved. So my ask to the committee has been, please conduct an independent review of this matter. Don't just gloss over it for the sake of getting through the session and move forward, because this is alive and well. And again, an officer of a court sat before you today and misled you into believing that these issues happened decades ago and they're not happening now. The reason why I referenced him is because when this information was provided to Richard Colangelo before he resigned, he assigned Doyle to review the prosecutor misconduct in this case. That is off the charts. And he took 3 years, not 3 months, not 30 days, to just absolve the prosecutor and hide it because he has authority to do so. If anyone looked back at this case and see what this prosecutor did after she got that evidence, amongst other evidence, that the person she had deemed a victim up front was actually the perpetrator of the crime, allowed her to get away with it.
I appreciate your stories and I appreciate your frustration, but I'm focused on this bill right
Mhm.
now. And I'm not dismissing what happened to you. We've talked about it at length. I understand it and I understand, I get it and I appreciate it. What I'm driving at is, it seems to me that the catalyst for all of that for you was that you were wrongfully accused and it was proven that the person who accused you was lying and they were not held criminally responsible, and everything else happened because of that. Is that what you're saying?
Part of that, but what I'm saying with this bill, it does not protect individuals like me. How does it account for a person of domestic violence lying on someone, engaging a SWAT team to come to one's home where your children can possibly be killed? That puts us as a victim of domestic violence, and the state doesn't recognize that. That's the issue. If this bill was to include something that would cover victims of domestic violence like myself and my children, I would be for it.
Okay.
Right now, as it's written, I believe that's what I wrote myself. As written, it does not cover that.
All right.
It keeps that hole wide open.
I hear this a lot from people who have been wrongfully accused of sex assault. I hear some people have been wrongfully accused of domestic violence, and I think it's wrong. I totally agree with you. But can you appreciate that we as a state have to walk a bit of a fine line? Because if we go down the road of prosecuting people who make even false accusations, it makes it much more difficult for true victims. That it creates a barrier for them to come forward. Can you understand that?
I totally disagree with that. And
Okay.
here's why. In the 20 plus years it's working as a CCSU investigator, knowing that individuals did have that challenge, that's why you do more than just investigate. You get out and you let folks know that they can come to you. And then when they come to you, you treat them professionally, and that word will spread. People don't come in some cases because they know they're not going to be believed. Here I was, a man who was 46 years old at the time. I endured the abuse that I was having because no one's going to believe that a 6 foot, 350-pound man is being abused in any way, even though I worked in the system.
Sure.
So my issue is you can't cater to one set of victims and not be all inclusive holistically to seriously address domestic violence. People who look like me have to know that when they speak up, people are going to listen, just as well as if I was blonde, blue-eyed, and 5'2", and of Caucasian persuasion,
Right.
that I'm going to be listened to and taken just as serious. Right now, our people are not trained to do that, which is why when they had a Scooby-Doo moment, like, oh, wait a minute, he's really the victim? Absolutely. And they refused to accept that. And our attorney general's office kept arguing the false narrative all the way along. That can't happen.
Got it.
We can't continue to promote people and elevate people when they are creating injustice.
All right. I think I understand your testimony on the bill then. Thank you. And thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
And if I may, one point, I'd like to
Represent-
say, I like the fact that both of you are from two different parties, opposing folks to the fact that two of you can recognize that we can have a bipartisan approach to end these problems that's going on, because both of you, Representative Fishbein and Senator Winfield, I believe are vehemently against innocent people being plucked out of their homes, plucked out of their children's lives, plucked out of all during the COVID, costing the state millions of dollars. As we just checked off, this Representative Howard, this accuser got paid $80,000 for making false statements.
Okay.
When I'm successful
Mr. Dukes.
in the whistleblower
Mr.
retaliation, she
Dukes.
stands to make hundreds of thousands more.
Mr. Dukes. I'm
Thank you.
gonna set same rules with you and everybody
I
else.
understand, sir.
Representative DiCaprio.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Duke, for sharing your perspective. Can you just, because I'm newer to the committee, maybe others know this, but what is a 16-point chokehold?
A 15-point chokehold is what I sustained. The chokehold, Paul Butler, professor at Howard, had written a book called Chokehold, Policing Black Men in America. That has been the research that American Justice Project has been applying throughout our state. Just last year, after testifying before this group, we had a young man facing a 15-point chokehold, meaning the number of elements of the chokehold that has been applied. It's not a physical chokehold, it's a metaphoric chokehold. This gentleman was facing 60 years in Milford for a crime that never took place. We saw body cam footage featured on Channel 61 News. We assessed all the body cam footage. We assessed all the records, and we were able to determine that these were all false accusations by the Shelton Police Department. And as a result of us producing our report to his defense attorney, she then in turn was able to meet with the prosecutor's office, show them this is a no crime case. You need to dismiss these charges. And they did dismiss those charges. Unfortunately, while he was wrongfully jailed, he made a phone call to his wife when he was in there. And so the prosecutor convicted him for making that phone call to his wife while he was wrongfully jailed to begin with. And unfortunately, he took a plea bargain on that. And in total, pretrial and disposition was 15 months in jail. But 15 months is a world of lot better than 60 years. I would recommend, sir, that if you please take a look at www.americanjusticeproject.org. His case is featured under our campaigns, and so is mine.
Okay, thank you very much for that. And I'm another one, we're not in favor of incarcerating people, innocent people. All right, thank you very much for your testimony. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Rep.
Thank you.
DiCaprio. Representative Fishbein.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Dukes, I think you'd agree with me. It's unfortunate up here. A lot of people think that domestic violence is just perpetrated upon females. But as you let us know today, you've been a victim. I had a client years ago who it was over 6 feet, probably not 350, maybe 320, big guy. And he complained about domestic violence, and they didn't believe him because you're a big guy. Until the wife in the middle of the night took an iron with the cord. She whipped around the cord, hit him in the head with the iron while he was in bed. Then they believed him.
Yeah.
I had a case a few years ago where a case I'm on tomorrow, where a woman keeps on making complaints to DCF and to the police that my client is doing bad things to the child. And she's making it up. I mean, it's repeated, and the child keeps on getting taken out of his care. I filed motions with the family court. You should send this case to criminal court because she's lying on affidavits. The case is staying in family court. It's never getting to the criminal court. It's a very difficult process to work with. So, I see it. Thank you for coming here today and,
My pleasure.
and the exchange. So thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Comment, question from other members of the committee, comment, question from other members of the committee. There are none. Thank you for joining us again.
Thank you, sir.
Enjoy the rest of your afternoon.